Hi, everyone. My name is Ekiuwa Aire. I'm a children's book author. I write children's books on African history. My children's books are about legends from Africa's past. I have two children's books under my belt right now. One is on Queen Idia of the Benin Kingdom, and the other is on Queen Njinga of Ndogo and Matamba, what is now Angola and the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Fantastic. No, really good to have you on board. Here at Afriverse, we like to look at Africans from the diaspora and on the continent who are doing really amazing things in the world of education and yeah, just teaching people great and awesome skills. So we're really happy to have you on board. I was wondering if you could tell us a bit more about your background. So I would say maybe your cultural heritage or you know, how you got into this in the first place. What made you decide, okay, I'm gonna create children's books, and why focus on children's books on the African continent?
So I am from Benin, Edo State, in Nigeria, West Africa. And growing up, I don't know where it came from, but I was very proud of my culture, very proud of my heritage. And Benin City, if you live there, you may not be aware of it because you think the rest of the world is like where you live, but it's a very culturally dense environment. A lot of the traditions from ancient times is still practiced to this day. And I was appreciative of that, and I loved it. I love my culture. And I no longer live in Benin City. I live now in Canada, and I have kids who are not growing up in this culturally dense environment that I grew up in. But I wanted them to have an appreciation of their culture. And I was very deliberate about this because in my perception and my point of view, I see that Africa has a perception that I do not agree with. There is there's a brand that Africa has that I don't think is correct. I don't think Africa is the place of like no return, or that there's nothing good that came out of it. And I know that that is what is going to be fed subconsciously to my kids, even if I try to counteract that. And so I try at home to ensure that my kids are proud of where they come from, of who they are. And in doing that, I started to read to them children's books. I found lots of great children's books, positive affirmation children's books, books on Black history. And it was when I started to look for books on African history that I was stumped. There was nothing. And I thought that that was wrong, and that was something that needed to be fixed. And in my opinion, these books are really not only for my kids, they're for all kids. All kids need to learn about Africa's contributions to the world. And I think that would create a world that is, I think, more
Oh no, I seem to have lost you again.
Oh goodness. So did you hear the entire thing?
I heard most of it. And then up to the point where you mentioned well, you talked about your children already needing to have access to it. I literally just missed like the last minute or half a minute.
Okay. Should I restart my computer maybe?
Yeah, I almost don't know if it's your computer or mine. You know what, let's try one more time. And if it does happen, then we can both restart.
Do I need to do that one again? Would you like me to do that one again?
If you don't mind, although I know it can be quite annoying to kind of break your flow. Apologies for technical glitches. If you don't mind doing so, otherwise we can carry on and then go on to the next question. I'll leave it up to you.
Oh, I can do it again. So the question was, why did I start writing children's books?
Yes. So what made you decide to go into children's books?
Where do I come from and what made me decide to go into children's book? So I come from the city of Benin, which is located in Edo State, and Edo State is located in the country of Nigeria, which is in West Africa. Growing up, I was very proud of my heritage and my culture, and I wanted to pass on that pride in my heritage and culture to my kids. And in doing that, I wanted to, one way to pass on heritage and culture, or a love of something, or a knowledge of an aspect of life to kids, is through books. And we're huge fans of books in my household. And I was looking for books on African heritage, on anything about African history or culture. And I couldn't find anything that was exactly what I was looking for, that told of the facts on African history and of what our contributions were to today's society. And I decided to try to fix that because I thought that was a gap in the market.
Fantastic, fantastic. I mean, you mentioned something. So what's the difference for those who are listening between Black history and African history? Surely, are they not the same?
They are married, but they are not the same.
Okay, okay.
They are related, well, they're not the same. Black history is, I would think of Africans in the diaspora, however it is that they may have left Africa. That is their history. And their history is important, and their history is significant, and their history should be shared. But before Africans left the continent, we had a history too. And that history is, I think, what has been modeled in the current narrative of we were nothing before the Europeans came and solved all of our problems. And I think that is the misconception that I'm hoping, and I think quite a few people are hoping to clear up, in that we were not nothing, and we did have a history, and we did contribute. Don't get me started on that.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you. And I thought it's very important to ask those questions, because we can oftentimes make assumptions, not just us, but people widely just think, okay, yeah, we're talking about Black history, African history, isn't that the same? But actually, as you pointed out, there are differences. And like you said, they're married, but there are differences that are worth pointing out and recognizing, which is
Correct.
fantastic. But tell me, the process of, I mean, I've thought of writing a book. Many people who read would think one day it'd be really nice to write a book. But how do you go from the idea to actually making this happen? Because for many people, writing a book is a dream, but not many people actually end up executing. So for you, what was the thought process, and then what were the steps you took towards actually turning that idea into a reality?
So yeah, so I'm a very logical person. And so when I decided to write a book, I was like, okay, what's step one? And I took it really one step at a time.
Okay.
I did not know like what step 10 would be. I just said, okay, first thing I need to do is I need to just figure out what my story is going to be.
Mm.
And so I did quite a bit of research. I decided that I was going to write on Queen Idia for my first book because it was close to home. She is she is of the kingdom that I am from, and I wanted to lean on my mother and my dad and my relatives to validate some of the facts that I wanted to share in my book. And so when I decided to write on Queen Idia, I had to write a draft of what I thought would be a good children's story. Interestingly, I think I wrote about 36 or so drafts of this story. I started off with a comic book. It was a great comic book, which I think I should share someday. And then I went into lots of different iterations of the draft before I had what I thought would be a good story. And I started to share it with people. Step one is the draft. Step two is the actual illustrations of the book. So when I was done with the draft, I was like, okay, how do I illustrate this book? Where do I find an illustrator? Once I figured that out, it was then the actual printing of the book and then the marketing. I would say for sure I went into this blindly. I did not know what I was going to be doing after each next step. But now that I've done it, when I had book one down, I said, okay, that was more work than I thought it would be, but it's doable. Let's see if we can rinse and repeat. And I did it again, and I'm doing it again, and I'm having fun with it now.
Oh, fantastic. I mean, it's amazing, and I'm going to take personal lessons from that. Sometimes when you find you want to do something, just start. Don't wait for things to align. Don't wait to know step 10. Literally just start from step 1 and kind of build up from there. Definitely something I'm going to be taking on board, and I'm hoping our listeners can also take on board as well.
Start with caution. Like, don't jump into like a lake where you don't know where the bottom is. But like, you should really just start and
Mm.
see where you can take it from there.
And you also mentioned about doing research as well. So that probably would have helped increase your confidence, right? After you've done some research and you found the stories and you're like, you know what, this is a story I can tell.
Yes, yes, correct.
Okay, awesome, awesome. So do you have the books on you actually, so we can show our audiences, for those who would be viewing this on the video podcast? So the first book we have here is Idia of the Benin Kingdom. Fantastic. And that was your first book?
This is my first book, my first baby. And
Okay.
then this is book 2, Queen Njinga of Ndogo and Matamba. And each book actually comes with activity books. And this is activity book for Idia. And this has coloring pages, activity sheets, connected dots, all of the stuff that my kids love, and I hope other kids will love too. And this is the activity book for Asian as well.
Fantastic, fantastic. So how did you go about, so what drew you on your second book? What drew you to Njinga? Because I understand the first one, which was more, it was your heritage, right? It was where you were from. But then how did you find out about Njinga and what drew you to her story?
So I started researching. I've always researched on African history. I find African history to be fascinating. But when I heard Njinga's story, especially about how she really fought slavery. Her life was dedicated to fighting against slavery and colonialism.
Mm,
I thought that that is a story that not only kids that Africans who never left the continent need to hear, but
mm,
Africans who left the continent need to hear too. That because it's a misconception that we gave away our people for earrings and mirrors,
mm,
and I thought that her story is important. That not everybody just gave away. There were people on the continent fighting against what was happening. And she was smart too, especially the aspect of her story where she had to negotiate with the Portuguese,
mm,
and they were being condescending to her, and she, being the boss lady that she was, stepped up to the plate, thought outside of the box, and told them that she was not one to be looked down upon.
mm.
And I thought that that's a good story as well, that you can marry up with today's kids. In my books, in trying to make my books as useful as possible, I'm not only teaching about African history. My books are stories that teach kids about African history, and there's a bit of growth mindset built into my books as well. So
Okay.
with the Idia book, I'm teaching about this queen, this young girl who became a queen, a warrior. But the underlying message of the Idia book was that she followed her dreams. With
Mm.
the Ishinga book, it's about this young girl whose father loved her so much, she was so smart, she could speak Portuguese. But the underlying message with that book is that she stood up for herself. So kids are reading this book, they're learning about African history, but they're also learning about, they're using these stories to relate to their everyday lives as well. And I thought that.
Fantastic, fantastic. I did notice something in your books. They both have, I don't know if this is by choice or just circumstance, but they both have female protagonists. Was that intentional or just a coincidence?
That was not intentional. That was just me as usual following my nose. I didn't think about that. Oh, I should balance this out. I should do one girl and then one boy. Ishinga story. I wrote the Ishinga story pretty much at the same time as I wrote the Idia story. And I'm a mom of 2 girls. So I think I was closer. When I read that story, it came to me as like, oh, I need to do her next. My next 2 books are going to be on 2 male characters, and I think that would even things out.
Yeah, but I mean, it's actually quite remarkable because a lot of stories, oftentimes, and it's been complained about just in general storytelling world, in the general storytelling world, that there's a lot of focus on male protagonists and there being female, if there are female characters there, they're usually the damsel in distress kind of character. Whereas this one, we're seeing women, strong women, who are taking their position in society and making a difference. And I think that's remarkable.
The interesting thing is when you look at African history, I do think there are more female legends. I don't know, don't quote me on this, but I know there's so between Amina and the Queen of Sheba and even Hatshepsut, there's so many female legends. I don't, before, I think before colonialism, Africa had, females did not have that submissive role. They did things, and Black girl magic did not start today, I don't think. They didn't start in the 20th century.
I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. And to be honest, I'm actually really looking forward to reading the stories you've already written and the ones to come, because even me growing up, I don't think I heard enough about the stories from the African continent. So I'm from Nigeria, but then I've not heard stories from other parts of Africa. So for me, it's going to be illuminating. I mean, it's going to be great, because by the time I do have my kids, I can show them these stories, but then I can also learn for myself as well and know more about the culture of the area where I'm from. So, which is fantastic. So
when you start to read about Africa and other countries in Africa, you would learn that we're more the same than we are alike. And the aspect of countries like that was put on us. And I know a lot of people say that Africa is not a country, and but it is, in a way. The countries in Africa were not created by Africans. So I think, in my point of view, Africa is closer, a closer representative of representation of Africa is Africa, versus all of the different countries that were created within Africa, because without those borders, we are all one.
Fantastic. No, I like that. I really like that. So what's next for you in terms of this whole project? So, I mean, I was going to ask about workbooks, but then you showed me you've already done the workbook. So you've got the story books, you've got the workbooks and the coloring books. What's next? Are we looking at animation? Are we looking at video games? I don't know.
Animation is one thing that I do have in the pipeline. It's still in the brainstorming stage right now. I want to write more books. I have way more books in my head, and I can't get them out as fast enough. So I do want to get those out. That's what I'm working on. These books are targeted at ages 4 to 12. Okay. I do plan to write some more books in this style before going to write a book, I think more targeted at babies, a book that is an appreciation of our African culture and heritage, but that you could read to a baby is what I think I'm going to do in the more medium term.
Oh, fantastic. I'm looking forward to seeing more and more animation, like the animation scene and just the video game scene it's small, but it's growing on the African continent. So I'm looking forward to seeing more and more content like these. And the more of these things we have and more representation we have in the arts, the more our young children can look and see role models to look up to, right? Because you see, I mean, when Black Panther came out, it was a really big deal because it was the first time where like the African population or Black characters were in the limelight and not just side characters, but and there was a whole gamut of a whole range of actors and not just one character or the other. So definitely looking forward to seeing those when you get to it, and looking forward to seeing more of your stories as well. But tell me, in terms of actually producing this, right? How do you go about finding an illustrator or a publisher, or how do you actually get it out? Because I imagine there are a few people who will be listening to this thinking, one day I'd like to write a children's book, but I don't even know step one, or I don't know step two. How do I go about it? And is it expensive? What do I need to invest? Just give me a bit of an idea of what it takes to actually create something like this.
There are different ranges, like in terms of cost, you could publish a children's book, I think, for, you're in England, so I would use pounds. You could publish a children's book for £1,000, or you could publish it for £10,000. And a lot of the cost with a children's book is with the illustration. And you could get an illustrator that's really expensive, and you would see it in the outcome, or you could find one that's really cheap. Where some children's book authors do find illustrators are on websites like Fiverr, Freelancer, Red Sea, Upwork. I found mine on Upwork, and they're great. Those are some of the resources that I have used, and I've used Fiverr quite a bit as well, but not for illustration. You can use freelancers to get it done.
Okay.
And yeah, that's it. Cut out that ad, please.
That's fine.
I forgot my thoughts.
That's fine. I was going to ask, so let's say you do find a few illustrators, but how do you actually choose them? Because I believe that, you know, being able to have good illustrators available, fine, but then how do you choose what makes a good illustrator for you, for example?
Well, what I do is I look at an illustrator's current work. And I have my aesthetic. There are lots of different aesthetics out there, and I know what I like. And you can see from both of my books, they do have sort of the same style of illustration. I like it to be a bit detailed and a little bit dreamy. And I look for illustrators that have that style of aesthetic. I don't know what it's called, and even when I was looking for an illustrator, I was searching, what is this called, so that I could put it in my Upwork gig or Fiverr gig that I want this style. But I don't think it has a name. You would have to look through an illustrator's current work, maybe look on Behance for examples of what you like. And you would then I created a gig where I said, this is what I'm looking for. This is a page of my book that I would like illustrated. If you would like to work with me, submit your work if it's in this style. And if I would like to work with you, I would require a sample from you. You pay for a sample. Some people don't do that, but I did do it because I really wanted my illustrations to be in a specific way. So before I work with any illustrator, I do require that I get a sample from them. And if the sample works with what I'm looking for, then we take it from there.
Fantastic. Okay. And then I tend to I'm going to be asking my guests this sort of question. So what would be the dream for you, the dream for Africa, the dream for the African diaspora? What would be, so we know how the world is right now, but what is the world as you would like it to be?
It's a tricky question. It's a very tricky question. I think, I don't know. Honestly, I'm not sure. The dream for Africa and the African diaspora, this is the first step. There is no dream. For me, the first step is us realizing who we are. We need to come to the realization of our worth and the power that we hold. And right now, our power is a little stifled, I think, because we are a little distracted. We have been distracted for years, and that distraction is keeping us from realizing our true potential. I think, in my opinion, a true love of self is what Africa needs. And when we get that, we can then start talking about everything else. But because I'm such a logical person, and because I always follow my nose, I'm just looking at the next step. And for me, the next step for Africa is a true love of self.
A true love of self, the future of Africa. No, I think that's beautiful, actually. And once you know your worth and your value, you won't let other people undervalue you. And then you can actually say, okay, what can I do that I can add even more value to the value we already know we have. It's fantastic. Yeah. So thank you so much. This has been really insightful for me. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to reading your books. So tell us, where can we find more about you, about your content, upcoming books? Where can we just follow what you're doing?
You can find me on our-ancestries.com. I have my books, I have my workbooks. I do have teacher lesson plans and units of studies that accompany my books. So they're great for schools and for homeschoolers. I have t-shirts that celebrate African history on my website. I have free worksheets that accompany each book on my website. And for authors and authors to be, I do offer consulting and one-on-one mentorship.
Fantastic, fantastic. And what kind of partnerships would you be looking to have in future? So would it be maybe with schools, with companies, just in case anybody in any of those companies is listening to this?
Yes. With schools, I offer author visits. So if a school is interested in having me come and read the book to the schools, that would be great. With companies, what we're looking to do is we need to spread the word. We have all of these stories. We have done the groundwork. The creatives have done the groundwork, and we have created these products, but we need to get them into the hands of readers. And in a continent like Africa, not everybody can afford these books. So I'm looking to work with companies to get these books into the hands of as many readers, especially on the African continent, as possible. I think this year I donated 100 books, and I'm looking to keep donating more books to Africa in the future.
Awesome, awesome. So you've heard it, folks. Definitely check out the book, Our Ancestries. So our-ancestries.com. And
Yes.
there you'll find all the books that Ekiuwa has created and all the ones that are coming in future. Thank you very much for joining us on this podcast. And Ekiuwa, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate you. And yeah, looking forward to reading more of your books and seeing what the future holds.
Thank you, Aire. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Take care. Thanks. Right. So that marks the end of this week's Afriverse podcast episode. Gosh, I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you're interested in courses by Africans and Africans in the diaspora, check out afriverse.co. That's AFRIVERSE.co. And check out the courses there. You can sign up with a free account. All right. I'll catch you in the next episode. Take care. Bye.